3 months ago, we told you the NFL hated Jalen Hurts.
When you good, you ain't gotta talk for yourself. They gonna talk for you.
Despite 2 Super Bowl appearances, an MVP finalist season, and breaking records with his dual threat abilities, the doubt persisted. The narrative was always the same: system quarterback, product of his weapons, carried by a supporting cast. So what happened next? Jalen Hurts did the impossible.
Diligent, steadfast, keep going, keep your eyes on me.
February 9th, 2025, Super Bowl Lalene. The Philadelphia Eagles dismantled the Kansas City Chiefs 40-22 in a performance that wasn't even close. Jalen Hurts didn't just win, he dominated. 17 completions on 22 attempts, 221 passing yards, and 2 touchdowns through the air, 72 rushing yards, a Super Bowl record for quarterbacks, and another touchdown on the ground, 0 turnovers, a perfect 126.8 passer rating on football's biggest stage. Jalen Hurts became just the 3rd black quarterback in NFL history to win Super Bowl MVP, joining Doug Williams and Patrick Mahomes in that exclusive club. The Eagles finished with a perfect 4, 0 playoff run, and 18 total wins, tying an NFL record. You'd think winning Super Bowl MVP would finally silence the doubters. You'd think being a champion would earn respect. You'd be wrong. June 2025, just 3 months after hoisting the Lombardi Trophy, Chris Sims of NBC Sports ranks Jalen Hurts 10th among NFL quarterbacks.
Number 10 will be the Philadelphia Eagles quarterback, Jalen Hurts. Now, is he perfect? No, he's not. I know that.
Not 5th, not even 7th, 10th, behind rookies and quarterbacks who have never won a playoff game. Pete Prisco of CBS Sports goes even further, ranking the Super Bowl MVP 52nd among all NFL players. 52nd. There are linebackers and wide receivers ranked higher than the reigning Super Bowl MVP. Colin Cowherd declares he'd take rookie Bo Nix, a quarterback with 8 wins and 0 playoff appearances, over Jalen Hurts to start a franchise. 3 months ago, we said the NFL hated Jalen Hurts. Today, we're here to tell you something even more disturbing. They hate him so much, they'd rather be wrong than admit they were wrong. This is the story of a champion who conquered everything, except the minds of those determined to diminish him. To understand how we got here, we need to go back to where we left off 3 months ago. Our documentary laid out the case for systematic bias against Jalen Hurts. The tush-push controversy, where the NFL considered banning a play simply because Hurts executed it perfectly. The media rankings that consistently placed him outside the top tier despite unprecedented success. The officiating disparities that seemed to favor every quarterback except him. We ended that video with a simple question. What does a quarterback who's done everything have to do to finally get the respect he deserves? Jalen Hurts heard that question, and he answered it. Coming off the devastating 2023 collapse, where the Eagles went from 10-1 to limping into the playoffs and getting embarrassed by Tampa Bay, Philadelphia knew changes were needed. General manager Howie Roseman made the boldest move of the offseason, signing Saquon Barkley away from the division rival New York Giants. The message was clear: we're going all in around Jalen Hurts. Vic Fangio was brought in to fix a defense that ranked 30th in points allowed. Kevin Patullo was promoted to offensive coordinator after briefly working under Kellen Moore, becoming Hurts' 5th different play caller in 6 NFL seasons. Most franchises would call that instability. In Philadelphia, they called it Tuesday. The media predictions were mixed at best. Many questioned whether Hurts could bounce back from his 15-2 interception 2023 season. Others wondered if the addition of Barkley was an admission that the Eagles didn't trust their quarterback to carry the load. The narrative was familiar. Prove it again, Jalen. He did exactly that.
You gotta know I work too. Shouldn't be the fear when you already put the work in. I come ready.
The 2024 regular season was a masterclass in efficiency and leadership. Hurts completed 68.7% of his passes, a career high that ranked among the best in the NFL. He threw 18 touchdowns against just 5 interceptions, a 3.6 dash to dash 1 ratio that showcased the improved decision-making his critics claimed he lacked. On the ground, he remained dominant, leading all quarterbacks with 14 rushing touchdowns while adding 630 yards at 6.1 yards per carry. The Eagles finished 14-3, winning the NFC East with room to spare, but the numbers only tell part of the story of this remarkable transformation. The offense generated 3,048 rushing yards, the sixth most in NFL history, with Hurts and Barkley forming the most dynamic rushing duo in the NFL. Week after week, defenses had no answer for the dual threat attack that could hurt them in multiple ways. Consider the statement games that defined the season. Against the Green Bay Packers in Brazil, Hurts threw for 278 yards and 2 touchdowns, while rushing for another score in a dominant 34-29 victory that announced the Eagles as serious contenders. Against the Cincinnati Bengals, he orchestrated a masterful 37-17 win, completing 16 of 20 passes, while the rushing attack churned out 206 yards. In the crucial division-clinching win over the New York Giants, Hurts was surgical, 20 of 26 for 301 yards and 2 touchdowns, plus 14 carries for 77 yards. The efficiency metrics were staggering. Hurts posted a 103.7 passer rating that ranked 6th in the NFL. His 68.7% completion percentage was a career high and top 10 in the league. Most remarkably, his interception rate dropped to just 1.4%, among the best in football, while maintaining his explosive rushing production. The defense transformed from 30th to 1st in total defense under Fangio's guidance, allowing just 278.4 yards per game. This wasn't just individual improvement. It was organizational excellence with Hurts at the center, proving he could adapt his game to maximize team success. But the season nearly ended before it began. In Week 16 against Washington, Hurts suffered a concussion that knocked him out for the final 2 regular season games. The doubters thought this was their moment. The whispers started immediately. Can he handle the physical demands? Is his style of play sustainable? Will this be the injury that finally exposes him? They were about to find out just how wrong they could be. The 2024 playoffs began with questions hanging over Jalen Hurts like storm clouds. He returned from his concussion wearing a knee brace, facing a Green Bay Packers team that had nothing to lose and everything to prove in the wild card round. What followed was a clinic in playoff quarterbacking. Against Green Bay, Hurts was surgical. No flash, no unnecessary risks, just cold, calculated excellence. He completed passes when needed, managed the game perfectly, and led the Eagles to a comfortable 22-10 victory. It wasn't spectacular, but it was precisely what championship quarterbacks do in January. They find ways to win. The divisional round against the Los Angeles Rams threatened to become the Saquon Barkley show. Barkley exploded for 205 rushing yards, dominating headlines and highlight reels. But watch the tape closely and you'll see what really won that game. Jalen Hurts converting third downs when it mattered most. 15 completions on 20 attempts, 70 rushing yards, and 2 total touchdowns. While Barkley got the glory, Hurts made the plays that kept drives alive and put the game away, 28-22. Then came the NFC Championship game against Washington, a contest that would silence any remaining questions about Hurts' big game ability. 55-23, the final score tells only part of the story. Hurts completed 20 of 28 passes for 246 yards and a touchdown through the air. On the ground, he was unstoppable. 3 rushing touchdowns that demoralized a division rival and sent Philadelphia back to the Super Bowl. But the moment that defined the game, and perhaps the season, came in the fourth quarter. After scoring his 3rd rushing touchdown, Hurts let loose with raw emotion rarely seen from the typically stoic quarterback.
That's what the f***ing do! That's what the f*** I do! That's what the f*** I'm talking about right there!
It was the sound of years of frustration finally boiling over. The sound of a champion who had grown tired of proving himself to people who refused to be convinced. The playoff numbers were staggering. Across 4 games, Hurts threw 10 passing touchdowns against just 2 interceptions while adding 5 rushing touchdowns. He extended his NFL record for career playoff rushing touchdowns to 9, more than some running backs achieve in their entire careers. The Eagles went 4-0, outscoring opponents 151-77 in dominant fashion. Jalen Hurts had done everything you could ask of a quarterback, but his biggest test and his ultimate vindication was yet to come. Super Bowl was more than a football game. It was a referendum on everything Jalen Hurts represented and everything his critics had claimed he couldn't do. The narrative heading into New Orleans was familiar. Patrick Mahomes seeking a historic three-peat, the Chiefs dynasty against the Eagles' championship hunger. Could Hurts finally get over the hump? Could he outplay the consensus best quarterback in the NFL when it mattered most? The answer came in the opening drive. Methodical, precise, unstoppable. 8 plays, 70 yards, capped by an 11-yard touchdown pass to A.J. Brown. The very first series set the tone. This wasn't going to be the nail-biter many expected. This was going to be a statement. Early in the first quarter, facing 4th and 1 at the Kansas City 1-yard line, Hurts lined up under center. The entire stadium knew what was coming. The Chiefs' defense knew what was coming. It didn't matter. The tush push, the play the NFL had once considered banning because Hurts executed it too perfectly, bulldozed into the end zone for a touchdown. 14-0 Eagles. The route was on. But this wasn't just about early scoring. This was about sustained excellence under the brightest lights in sports. Hurts completed his first 7 passes, looking every bit the composed pocket passer his critics claimed he could never become. When designed runs were there, he took them. When protection broke down, he improvised. When the Chiefs tried to make their inevitable run, he answered with precision strikes that kept them at arm's length. The final statistics were a work of art. 17 completions on 22 attempts, a 77.3% completion rate that showcased pinpoint accuracy, 221 passing yards, and 2 touchdowns through the air, 72 rushing yards that broke his own Super Bowl record for quarterbacks set just 2 years earlier, 1 rushing touchdown that perfectly encapsulated his unique skill set, 0 turnovers, 0 mistakes, a perfect 126.8 passer rating, 293 total yards of offense, orchestrating a symphony of destruction against the NFL's supposed best team. The 40-22 final score wasn't close. This wasn't a game decided by a field goal or a lucky bounce. This was systematic domination by a quarterback who had grown tired of being told he wasn't good enough. When the confetti fell and the Lombardi Trophy was presented, Jalen Hurts had achieved something that should have been historically significant. He became just the 3rd black quarterback in NFL history to win Super Bowl MVP, joining Doug Williams from 1988 and Patrick Mahomes from 2023. His 73.3% career Super Bowl completion percentage stands as the highest in NFL history. At 26 years old, he became the youngest quarterback to win multiple Super Bowl games as a starter. Eagles veteran Brandon Graham summed up the moment perfectly in his post-game interview. "Tell him get off your back." The message was clear. Respect was no longer requested, it was demanded. Social media exploded with Eagles fans demanding apologies. The hashtag Jalen Hurts trended worldwide with thousands of tweets echoing the same sentiment. I want every Jalen Hurts hater to make sure their apology is as loud as the disrespect was. Jalen Hurts had reached the pinnacle. Super Bowl champion, Super Bowl MVP. Everything the doubters said he couldn't do, he'd done on the sport's biggest stage. Finally, the respect would come, right? What happened next defies logic, reason, and basic human decency in sports discourse. Chris Sims of NBC Sports, a man who has made a career out of quarterback evaluation, released his annual QB rankings in June 2025, 3 months after Jalen Hurts won Super Bowl MVP, 3 months after the most dominant playoff run in recent memory, 3 months after silencing every conceivable criticism about his ability to win at the highest level. Chris Sims ranked Jalen Hurts 10th among NFL quarterbacks, not 5th, not 7th, 10th, behind Patrick Mahomes, fair enough, behind Josh Allen, who has never reached a Super Bowl, behind Lamar Jackson, whose playoff struggles are well documented, behind Joe Burrow, who has one Super Bowl appearance that ended in defeat, behind Justin Herbert, who has never won a playoff game, behind CJ Stroud, who has played one season, behind Jaden Daniels, a rookie who hadn't taken a single NFL snap when these rankings were released, behind Matthew Stafford, whose best days are clearly behind him, behind Baker Mayfield, a journeyman who has been cast off by multiple teams. Baker Mayfield, ranked ahead of the reigning Super Bowl MVP, but it gets worse. Sims has spent 12 minutes discussing Hurts, longer than any other quarterback on his list. 12 minutes explaining why a Super Bowl MVP wasn't good enough for the top 5. 12 minutes of mental gymnastics that would make Olympic athletes jealous. Some people are going to look at this and go, man, this is harsh. He's a little low on Jalen Hurts, Sims declared with stunning self-awareness, but there are still flaws in his football game that need to be addressed. Still flaws. After Super Bowl MVP, still flaws. Let's examine Sims's historical rankings of Hurts to understand the pattern. 2021, unranked. 2022, 25th overall. 2023, 7th after his Super Bowl appearance. 2024, 9th. 2025, 10th after winning Super Bowl MVP. Do you see the problem? Jalen Hurts achieved the ultimate goal in professional football, and Chris Sims ranked him lower than he did the previous year. Not higher, lower. Chris Sims looked at a Super Bowl MVP trophy and decided it was worth negative points in his evaluation. But Sims wasn't alone in his delusion. Pete Prisco of CBS Sports took the disrespect to even more absurd levels. In his top 100 players ranking, Prisco placed the reigning Super Bowl MVP 52nd among all NFL players. 52nd. There are linebackers, wide receivers, and defensive backs ranked higher than the quarterback who just won the sport's most prestigious individual award. To put this in perspective, Jaden Daniels, a rookie, was ranked 33rd, 19 spots ahead of the Super Bowl MVP. A player who had never taken an NFL snap was deemed more valuable than the quarterback who just dominated the sport's biggest stage. But wait, it gets even more ridiculous. In February 2025, just days after Hurts' Super Bowl MVP performance, Prisco appeared on television and declared, "I would take Baker Mayfield over Jalen Hurts." Baker Mayfield, a quarterback who has been traded or released by the Browns, Panthers, and Rams, a quarterback with a career-losing record, a quarterback who has never won a playoff game as a starter. Pete Prisco looked at championship hardware and chose the journeyman. Colin Cowherd joined the chorus of insanity with perhaps the most tone-deaf take of all. On his show, Cowherd declared he would take Bo Nix, a rookie quarterback with 8 wins and 0 playoff appearances, to start a franchise over Jalen Hurts. Bo Nix, 0 playoff games, 0 Pro Bowls, 0 All-Star, anything. Jalen Hurts, Super Bowl MVP, 2 Super Bowl appearances, 46-20 record as a starter. Cowherd's reasoning? He questioned whether Hurts' 2022 success was due to former offensive coordinator Shane Steichen rather than Hurts himself. This conveniently ignored that Hurts had just won Super Bowl MVP with a completely different coordinator, proving his adaptability and individual excellence. The pattern had become clear, every excuse debunked, new ones created. 2020, not accurate enough. 2021, can't read defenses. 2022, system quarterback. 2023, too many turnovers. 2024, just has good weapons. 2025, still has flaws. After Super Bowl MVP. The goalposts didn't just move, they were relocated to different stadiums, then different cities, then different dimensions entirely. The absurdity reached levels that would be funny if they weren't so damaging to the reputation of sports journalism. These aren't random fans on social media. These are paid professionals whose job it is to evaluate football talent, and they collectively decided that winning Super Bowl MVP was somehow evidence of inadequacy. But the bias extends beyond just the major media figures. ESPN's Ryan Clark, a former NFL player, suggested that Hurts' success was primarily due to his supporting cast, arguing that any good quarterback could have achieved the same results. With Philadelphia's roster, this conveniently ignored that the Eagles had similar talent in 2023 and collapsed, highlighting Hurts' specific leadership impact. Skip Bayless went even further, posting on social media that he still wasn't convinced Hurts belonged in the elite tier, even after the Super Bowl MVP performance. When pressed for specifics, Bayless cited intangibles and clutch factor, this about a quarterback who had just delivered the most clutch performance in franchise history. The international media wasn't immune either. BBC Sports NFL coverage consistently minimized Hurts' achievements while amplifying every Chiefs talking point. Their Super Bowl recap spent more time analyzing Patrick Mahomes' resilient effort in defeat than celebrating Hurts' historic performance. Even former NFL executives joined the pile-on. Anonymous quotes to Adam Schefter suggested that multiple front offices still questioned Hurts' ceiling, with one executive claiming he was a good quarterback having a great season, rather than acknowledging sustained excellence. The pattern was clear. When faced with overwhelming evidence of success, the response was to question the evidence rather than revise the evaluation. To understand the full scope of this bias, we need to examine what the numbers actually say about Jalen Hurts compared to the quarterbacks consistently ranked above him. Let's start with the so-called elite tier that Chris Sims and others insist belongs ahead of the reigning Super Bowl MVP. Patrick Mahomes sits alone at the top, and rightfully so. 3 Super Bowl rings, 3 Super Bowl MVPs, 2 regular season MVPs, no argument there. Mahomes is the gold standard, and no one is suggesting Hurts belongs above him. But after Mahomes, the comparisons become laughable. Josh Allen, ranked consistently in the top 3 by every analyst. Incredible arm talent, outstanding mobility, statistical excellence. Also, 0 Super Bowl appearances. A 4-6 playoff record compared to Hurts' 6-3. 0 conference championship games compared to Hurts' 2. Allen has been in the league longer, has had more opportunities, and has less to show for it in terms of team success. Lamar Jackson, the 2019 MVP with electrifying dual threat ability. Sims ranked him #1 overall. Jackson's regular season numbers are spectacular, but his playoff resume tells a different story. 2 4 playoff record, 0 Super Bowl appearances, multiple early exits, including blowout losses. Hurts has more playoff wins, 6, than Jackson has playoff games, 6. Yet Jackson is consistently ranked higher. Joe Burrow, the golden boy who led LSU to a championship and was drafted 1st overall. Exceptional arm talent, outstanding accuracy, clutch performances. Also, 1 Super Bowl appearance that ended in defeat. A 5-2 playoff record that, while impressive, includes fewer wins than Hurts. Burrow is regularly placed in the top 3, despite having fewer accomplishments than the quarterback ranked 10th. Justin Herbert, perhaps the most egregious comparison of all. Incredible physical tools, jaw-dropping arm strength, impressive statistical production. Also, 0 playoff wins, 0 playoff appearances for the first 3 years of his career, 0 conference championship games, 0 Super Bowl appearances. Herbert has been in the league 4 years and has exactly 0 meaningful January victories, yet he's consistently ranked ahead of a 2-time Super Bowl quarterback. The accomplishment gap is staggering. The quarterbacks ranked 5th through 9th by Chris Sims have combined for exactly 1 Super Bowl victory. Matthew Stafford's 2022 championship with the Rams. Jalen Hurts alone has more Super Bowl appearances, 2, than the rest of Sims' top 10 combined. But the bias extends beyond just playoff success. Let's examine the contract analysis that reveals how the market values these quarterbacks. Dak Prescott earned $60 million per year with 0 Super Bowl appearances. Jordan Love gets $55 million per year with 1 playoff win. Trevor Lawrence makes $55 million per year with 1 playoff win. Jalen Hurts receives $51 million per year despite being the Super Bowl MVP. The market is paying potential more than production. Quarterbacks with 0 Super Bowl appearances are earning more than the reigning Super Bowl MVP. It's a damning indictment of how the NFL values perception over performance. Advanced metrics reveal similar bias patterns. Pro Football Focus has consistently undervalued Hurts despite his team's success, focusing on their proprietary grading system while ignoring actual results. ESPN's QBR system ranked Hurts 10th in 2024, the year he won Super Bowl MVP. Think about that. The quarterback who performed best when it mattered most was somehow rated as only the best quarterback that season by ESPN's advanced metric. The efficiency statistics make the bias even more obvious. Hurts' 68.7% completion percentage in 2024 ranked among the best in the NFL. His 3.6 dash to dash 1 touchdown to interception ratio demonstrated improved decision-making. His dual threat production, 14 rushing touchdowns, leading all quarterbacks, showcase unique value that doesn't show up in traditional passing statistics. When the eye test says champion, the advanced metrics say champion, and the trophy case says champion, but the analysts see flaws. Perhaps the problem isn't with the quarterback. The disrespect toward Jalen Hurts extends far beyond individual analysts' opinions into institutional NFL treatment that reveals systematic bias. Let's start with officiating, the most quantifiable form of bias in professional sports. Super Bowl El Favino against Kansas City featured a penalty disparity that raised eyebrows. The Chiefs were flagged 3 times for 14 yards. The Eagles faced 6 penalties for 33 yards. In the sport's biggest game, one team was penalized twice as often as the other. Super Bowl LeLun brought more controversy. On the Eagles' opening drive, A.J. Brown was flagged for offensive pass interference on a crucial 4th down conversion. The call was so questionable that it was immediately overturned, but the pattern was clear. In big moments, the flags seemed to favor Kansas City. Throughout his career, Hurts has consistently ranked among the most sacked quarterbacks in the NFL, absorbing punishing hits with remarkable frequency. Yet roughing the passer calls in his favor are notably rare. Compare this to other star quarterbacks who routinely draw flags for questionable contact, and the disparity becomes glaring. The NFL's marketing and promotion practices reveal another layer of institutional bias. When EA Sports selected the cover athlete for Madden 24, they chose Josh Allen over Jalen Hurts, despite Hurts having appeared in a Super Bowl that year, while Allen missed the playoffs entirely. The message was clear. Marketability mattered more than meaningful accomplishments. Uniform policy enforcement has been selectively applied. In December 2024, Hurts was fined $5,628 for wearing non-team colored shoes, a violation that occurs league-wide every Sunday without consequence. The irony was palpable. The NFL's social media team initially celebrated the return of Jalen 2 shoes before deleting the post following the fine. The league's social media promotion consistently focuses on Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, and Joe Burrow while minimizing coverage of the actual champion. Positive Hurts stories are buried in news cycles, while negative narratives are amplified and repeated endlessly. The coverage formula has become predictable. Success equals system, failure equals quarterback. When the Eagles win, credit goes to the supporting cast. Saquon Barkley, the offensive line, the defense. When they struggle, blame falls squarely on the quarterback. It's a double standard that doesn't apply to other elite players at the position. This institutional bias creates a feedback loop where media narratives influence public perception, which influences marketing decisions, which influence media coverage. Jalen Hurts finds himself fighting not just individual critics, but an entire ecosystem designed to minimize his accomplishments. The merchandise sales data reveals another telling disparity. Despite winning Super Bowl MVP, Hurts' jersey sales ranked only 8th league-wide in 2024, trailing players like Jaden Daniels and CJ Stroud, who had significantly fewer accomplishments. This suggests that marketing efforts and media coverage directly impact fan engagement and commercial success. Television programming decisions also reflect institutional bias. When NFL Network aired their top 100 players countdown, Hurts was conspicuously absent from promotional materials despite his championship credentials. Meanwhile, quarterbacks with lesser resumes received extensive feature segments and primetime spotlights. The league's own digital content strategy shows similar patterns. NFL.com's season recap articles dedicated more word count to analyzing Josh Allen's near-miss playoff run than celebrating Hurts' championship journey. Their video content algorithms consistently promoted highlight reels of other quarterbacks over Super Bowl MVP moments. Even Pro Bowl voting revealed institutional bias. Despite his championship season, Hurts barely made the NFC roster, receiving fewer votes than quarterbacks who missed the playoffs entirely. The fan voting component showed strong support, but media and player votes mysteriously lagged behind his actual performance metrics. Let's recap this impossible journey. College benching at Alabama, transfer to Oklahoma, NFL draft slide to the second round, labeled a gadget player, questioned as a starter, criticized for his accuracy, doubted for his playoff ability, dismissed as a system quarterback. Every single criticism has been answered. Every single goal has been achieved. Every single mountain has been conquered. 2 Super Bowl appearances, 1 Super Bowl MVP, multiple playoff records, a .697 winning percentage as a starter, statistical improvement in every meaningful category, leadership that transformed a franchise culture, yet the respect remains elusive. Jalen Hurts has conquered every mountain they've placed in front of him. So they just keep building new ones. Each achievement met with new skepticism, each record broken, followed by revised standards, each championship accompanied by asterisks and qualifiers. This reveals something profound about the NFL and sports media in general. We claim to value meritocracy, the idea that performance determines status. But Jalen Hurts proves that sometimes the narrative matters more than the numbers. Sometimes perception trumps production. Sometimes admitting you were wrong is harder than being consistently right. The NFL doesn't just hate Jalen Hurts, it hates being wrong about him. Every ranking that places him outside the top 5 is an admission that years of criticism were misguided. Every analysis that minimizes his championships is an acknowledgement that the experts missed something fundamental about evaluating quarterback talent. So they double down. They move goalposts. They create new standards that mysteriously don't apply to anyone else, because admitting error would require intellectual honesty that seems to be in short supply among those paid to provide expert analysis. What does this say about how we evaluate greatness? Maybe the real question isn't when will Jalen get respect? Maybe it's, what does it say about us? That a champion has to keep proving he's a champion. Jalen Hurts now has everything the critics said he needed. Championships, individual awards, statistical excellence, team success, clutch performances, leadership credentials, but he's still fighting for basic acknowledgement of his place among the elite. Perhaps that's the most telling indictment of all. In a league that prides itself on being the ultimate meritocracy, merit apparently isn't enough if you don't fit the predetermined narrative. 3 months ago, we asked what Jalen Hurts had to do to get respect. He answered with a Super Bowl MVP trophy. The NFL responded by moving the goalposts again, so we'll ask a different question. At what point do we stop listening to people who would rather be consistently wrong than occasionally right? Let us know in the comments. Is Jalen Hurts the most disrespected champion in NFL history? And if you're tired of seeing greatness diminished, smash that subscribe button, because we'll be here documenting every mountain they try to build in front of him. The story of Jalen Hurts isn't just about one quarterback's journey to the top. It's about what happens when someone achieves everything they're supposed to achieve, only to discover that some people's minds are already made up. The NFL still hates Jalen Hurts. But maybe, just maybe, that says more about the NFL than it does about him.